Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rock Shop with Ralph, your source for the best celebrity interviews, 2023 edition. The man I have front and center has been behind some of the most iconic albums over the last 40 years. Let me throw these albums at you. ACDC, 6 albums. AEROSMITH, Permanent Vacation. Cult, Sonic Temple. Poison, Flesh and Blood. And the one I really want to talk about, and we're going to talk about it, Dio, Strange Highways. You thought I forgot that one, huh, Mike?
Nice. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Fraser.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
All right, Mike, I got to say, and I told you this before we went on, it's a long time coming. People that know me know that I've been, they call me the king of useless information. I'm the guy where they're like, Ralph, who produced Dio Strange Highways in 1994? I'll be like, Mike Fraser, you know. Who engineered and mixed Cult, Sonic Temple, or and it's always it always comes back to the producers, the engineers, the mixers, the directors, the gaffers in movies. I'm the idiot that stays at the end of the movie and I'm watching the credits roll in the movie theater, But
that's when the best music is on sometimes, though.
Exactly. I said the same thing. I'm like, wait, Eye of the Tiger, that's a Rocky 3. That's at the end of the movie. But how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, just still trying to get through this COVID era. It's been a bit of a weird time, dumped us all on top of our heads. But, I got to say, I think it's starting to come back. You see some bands out there actually fulfilling tours. I know they started a little while ago and a bunch of bands I know canceled tours just because it's so expensive out there. And
I know. And
one of the other problems is everybody's out there doing it too. So they couldn't book venues, and just trying to get from point A to point B was just like, it was a crazy thing. So I think 2023, I think, is gonna be our year. We're gonna get rid of that 2019, 2021 era, and off we go. And let's do it, man.
Until the next variant comes out.
Yeah, well, that's life, right?
Well, anyway, it's a pleasure to have you on. I can't do I told you this. For a man who's been in the business for over 40 years, I can't run the gamut on everything that you've done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out a little bit from the beginning, and we'll work our way through some of the most iconic albums and some of my favorite albums. Okay. And then we'll end off at where you are right now. So your story starts off something like, sort of like Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi's uncle was Tony Bon Jovi from the Power Station. Yeah. And Bon Jovi got a job there, sweeping up, doing whatever he could, running and getting coffee for people or whatever. I'm not saying you necessarily did that, but the sweeping up part you did. Your uncle owned Little Mountain Sound, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you got your start doing what there?
Well, I used to drive heavy equipment trucks, logging trucks and all bulldozers and all that. And I got tired of getting laid off in the winter. Here in Vancouver, the winter just gets soggy.
Right.
We get a lot of snow, but it just gets soggy and you got to shut down. So I thought, well, what do I want to do? I love music. Oh, hey, maybe I'll get into the studio side of things. So I made a couple calls. First call was to my uncle at Little Mountain. I said, hey, I'm looking at this. And he goes, well, there's no jobs here for you. But he says, tell you what, he says, we need a janitor. You want to come in and do a janitor? And I thought, well, why not, man? Come in and at least I got my foot in the door, right? And
I'll take it.
Check it out. So, I think I was a janitor for maybe 4, 5, 6 months. And I was a shitty janitor because all I wanted to do is
you wanted to do the music part.
And, I had to be there at 4 a.m. So I'd just do the little amount I could, and then I'd be right in there on the session. So I progressed fast into assisting on sessions because I was a shitty janitor. So
one of the albums that's not mentioned too much, but I noticed that you had part in was Bryan Adams' Reckless.
Yeah.
Right. Was that the Bob Clearmountain connection?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I worked on all those early records with Bryan and Bob. I was an assistant at that point, and Bob and I just clicked because, when you're really into something and really love it, for me anyways, you become quite good at it because you're just putting your all into it. And Bob was just like, whoa, man, this guy is awesome. So he had me there on the whole time and hanging out, and you know, I got to give Bob credit to, you know, help me get to where I'm at now too. You know, just sitting there in the back watching him do his stuff was just amazing. And then Brian and I, we had known each other since we were about 16. He was a band here, took over lead singing on a band called Sweeney Todd. So I met him in a club, snuck into a club. He was 16 singing, and I'm 16 in the crowd.
Okay.
Somehow we bumped into each other. I wasn't even in the business yet, but we bumped into each other. And the first time we met at Little Mountain, he was in doing some project, and he goes, I remember you. You're that kid at that club out in Langley or something. And it was like, it's just
so were you part of the Bryan Adams dance hit? Let me take you dancing.
Yeah, man. Well,
Let me steal your heart away.
You know your shit, Ralph. Wow.
Hey, come on, baby. Come on, Bob. Come on, Mike. Bob, I'm calling you Bob now.
But funny enough, on the Bryan session, so we did all the stuff. So they flew me out to New York on, it was probably the Reckless record. And then Bob was going to start mixing. I thought, well, that's I want to see the magic. I want to see Bob mixing. So I went out there for, I think it was like 10 days, and they're still doing overdubs. Never saw them do the mix, but that was kind of my first foray into my New York love affair.
One night love affair.
All-time favorite city in North America. I love it in New York.
That's it, baby.
You know, especially back in those days, because you know, everybody tells you know, fuck off, or hey, you're all right. You know, like
that's still the same way.
Stood, you know, and it's like, it was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah. So the Bryan and Bob Clearmountain was one of the names. Like I told you, I'm reading the line. It was always you know, Bob Clearmountain or George Ludwig from Master Disc. You know, Bob Ludwig. I'm sorry. You know, just all those names. So you're working at Little Mountain Sound, and you start working with the late Bruce Fairbairn, and you're the engineer mixer, and he's the producer. And one of the albums that you're working on around 1987 was Aerosmith's comeback album, which by far is, I feel, is Aerosmith's best album, Permanent Vacation.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about doing that?
Well, that one started funny because that was right at the giant turning point in my career. So I was a full-on assistant at that point. Bob Rock was the engineer. Bruce is doing the record.
Bob Rock, who's that?
Bob Rock. Yeah. We started doing the record. We're about a week into the tracking, and tracking usually takes, you know, 4 to 6 weeks to do. We're about a week into it. And Bob at the time was in a band called the Paolas. So we're about a week into this thing, and Bob goes, hey, Bruce, he says, I can't finish the record. They just booked us on a tour across Canada. I got to go do this tour. And Bruce is like, oh, okay, well, that's a bummer. He says, okay, well, Mike can finish recording the record. And like, okay, cool. So I jumped in from assistant engineer. It was now the assistant, or now the engineer, and jumped in. We finished doing all the recording of the record. When we're done, Bruce took 3 days off. He had to go to New York for business or something. He says, okay, when I'm gone in 3 days, I want you to rough mix the whole record, because we need to sort of send out some demo tapes to find somebody to mix this record. So Bruce takes off. I come in the next day. I'm working away on the mix, and Stephen and Joe walk in.
The Toxic Twins.
The Toxic Twins walk in, and they took a listen to what I'm doing. They're going, you're not really into this, are you? You don't want to do this, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm just gutted. I'm like, oh my God, they hate it. They go, nah, sounds great. He says, you want to mix this record, just go for it. So I mixed 3 songs by the time Bruce got back, and he came back, and he was pissed that I didn't have the whole thing mixed.
Oh, so do you remember the songs that you mixed, the 3 songs?
Let
me guess.
I know.
Oh, St. John.
St. John was one.
I didn't like that one.
God,
St. John, be cool, tell the people they'll follow you. Yeah. Come on, tell me you mixed Hearts Done Time.
So then all of a sudden, Steven says to Bruce, no, Bruce, check out these mixes. Bruce loved them. He says, okay, I think we found our mixer. So I went right from assisting to being the mixer on that. And then the next record we did was Pump. So I recorded and mixed that whole record. So that was my Aerosmith story.
Awesome. So, I mean, and those are two of their biggest selling albums.
Yeah.
You know, you can't beat Dude Looks Like a Lady or Love in an Elevator, you know, Ragdoll.
Yeah.
That Ragdoll was Bruce always brought like the horns into his production, right?
Yeah, which I thought was a strange thing because, you know, I was an Aerosmith fan back in the day, and I thought, horns on an Aerosmith record, what? And dude, you know, it worked. It sounded awesome.
Right. Well, I can tell you those two albums are part of the soundtrack to my life, Mike, and you did a great job there. I always said sonically, I always thought that those two albums were Aerosmith's best. Yeah. From Permanent Vacation and Pump, their golden comeback era, I should say.
I think it was a great transition from the old like rocks,
right?
And all that old great Aerosmith, and it was a great transition. Had a newer sound, but you know, it was a great transition, and yeah, I was proud to work on them.
Right, was going to bring me up to like 1990, and I got to tell you about this one. I just drew a blank. Oh my God, what happened? Oh, Poison's Flesh and Blood.
Yep.
I gotta say, most people are gonna say, "Oh, Poison." I've been a Poison fan, and I can tell you that album is my favorite album of Poison's lot. Okay, you can tell sonically the transition from Open Up and Say Ah to that one, from Tom Werman to Bruce Fairbairn to what you with your mix on it.
Yeah.
What was now? How did you go into that? Do you go into every situation with an open mind and say, okay, I'm going to get the best out of them that I can?
100%. You know, I've got an easier job than Bruce. You know, Bruce being the producer, he's the one that's kind of got to dial it all together. I just really have to get the tones, get the band happy and all that stuff. But, you know, we knew that was going to be a bit of a tough one. You know, they had a really good thing with their Open Up Say Ah, like it was like bang and bang, and it's okay, well, we got to make one that tops that, you know. And they come in there, and you know, they're a wilder band than we had worked with up to there. You know, CC was, you know, he's on the whatever
from Brooklyn too, by the way.
So there's a lot of wrangling we had to do to kind of get them going, but you know, Bruce cracked the whip and we worked them hard, you know. And I remember one time, you know, I got total respect for Brett because, you know, what a guy he is. Like, you know, he had a bit of a rep that, you know, he was like a druggie, and you know, they're all doing drugs and this and that, and that was not the case. You know, Brett was a diabetic, so
yeah,
he was shooting up. But you know, I guess people thought, oh, rock and roll, and you're looking like that, oh, he must be doing heroin or something. So you know, he was pretty good. You know, he could sing pretty good, but you know, wasn't his top thing. And I remember him saying to me once, he goes, you know what, Mike? He says, I'm not much of a singer, but he says, I give it my all. And he says, you know, my fans
can't say that about him.
Follow me, and he says, you know, I ain't embarrassed about how I do it. He says, I know I'm not the best out there, but he says, I give it. It's all from here, man. And I'm like, wow, you know.
Right now, what was your impression when you heard Unskinny Bop? Did you say like, what the fuck am I doing here? What the fuck is Unskinny Bop?
Well, you know, it wasn't like the rock that I'm into and that, but man, you know, history proves you wrong, right? Like
exactly.
Exactly. Still going. And then that comment came, right? So everybody's going, oh, Unskinny Handy Bop or whatever. Right.
So two questions I got to ask. Did you ever come across, whether you're a producer, engineer, or mixer, and you say to yourself, this fucking song sucks. I can't polish a fucking turd. I mean, you got to come across that, Mike. Or the guy can't play his instrument, or what the fuck am I going to do? Do I got to work my magic here more than I should? I mean, do you ever come across that? And you can give names if you want, or you don't have to give names if you don't want to.
You know what? That's part of my gig. You know, you get that daily or almost on every session, even a great band there'll be a song that'll pop up and it's like, oh, what are we going to do with this thing? But that's what you do, you know, the tough get going, right? And you just get out the shine and you just start polishing. And, you know, I find encouragement and positivity, you know, you don't go, that sucks. Oh, you got to, you know, this. No, okay, that was really good. But I think there's one more. I think there's a better part, or there, you know, like you got to try and push them into making it better. And it usually always does.
I can picture you in the studio. The guy's like, "It's so fucking great, isn't it?" Mike's like, "Yeah, it's good, it's good." And Mike's like, "What the fuck is this guy looking at? Oh my, what the hell? Did he hear this thing? Sounds like somebody fucking putting their nails across the chalkboard."
I worked with David Foster once, right? You know,
iconic producer, Chicago, many others.
All those guys. So we worked with him once, and he had this great line. You know, the singer would be out there singing, they'd just be, you know, blood on the microphone, and they're just giving it their all. He goes, "Yeah," he says, "that was really good." He says, "That was as close as we could get to perfect. But do one more."
Do one more, right? Yeah.
Do one more. Yeah. No, do one more.
Now, not to get too personal financially, but I got to ask you this, and most people want to know this.
Yeah.
How does a producer or a engineer get paid? Does an engineer get paid like upfront money, or like an album like Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation, millions and millions of copies sold, Poison's Flesh and Blood, millions and millions of copies sold? Do you get paid royalties? You get paid points? How does that work? I mean, you don't have to give too much out, but just a general knowledge so people know.
Well, every project's different. You know, when you're starting out, you don't get any points.
Right.
Sometimes the producer would flip you a half a point or something just because you're part of the whole thing. But basically, you sort of negotiate. Here's what I want for the whole record. You know, it's not per hour or per day. Say, you know, I'll give you X amount of dollars for 6 weeks of work. If we go past the 6 weeks, we'll pay X amount of dollars kind of over time, and that's your thing. As your name gets sort of higher up there, then you can say, okay, that's great.
Now
I also want a cut of the action, because, you know, and then sometimes you'll take less upfront money to get more of the cut of the action, because it helps their budget out. And then if the record's successful, then we all,
paid.
You know.
Right. So all in all, it could be, if you hear Unskinny Bop on the radio, you're going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, hopefully.
Hopefully, right.
Yeah.
A
lot of those early records, I didn't get any of the points.
Yeah, so. Right. Well, let's go into I want to go into a miss right now, which an album that I hated, and you know which one I'm going to say. I think you know what I'm going to say. Vince Neil, Carved in Stone.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No offense against you, Mike.
Yeah.
But that was one where I was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You know, and I know he was at a rough time in his life with his daughter passing away and stuff.
Yeah.
But the whole Dust Brothers, you know, commercial electronic sound to it, I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? You know, and that had to be a pretty hard album for you to do.
Well, you know, it was one of those ones, you know, I had done some sort of side work with the Motley Crue guys. You know, Bob Rock did all the records, but I've done some recording with them, and we became good friends. So when Vince came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to do this," I'm like, "Yeah, man, okay, let's do this." And I always tried to make the best out of what we got.
Right.
But on that record, I got to say, Vince and I really kind of bonded. Like, you know, he's actually a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a great guy.
One-on-one, and during those sessions, we're doing it in LA. There's big storm, probably similar to what's going on there right now. There's these big storms. He had his place out in Malibu. He couldn't make it to the studio because he couldn't get out. They actually eventually had to send a helicopter rescue squad to get him off his property because he's surrounded by water and it's flooding. Wow. Pretty intense, but it was interesting times for sure. You know, we just give it the best shot, and I think it sounded pretty good compared to what was there. So
right,
you know, it's like that's all I can do is make it the best I can do.
Right. And when I use the word hate, I'm saying hate I was used to Dr. Feelgood, Kickstart My Heart,
Yeah.
Too Young to Fall in Love, all the other stuff. And then I'm getting this electronica stuff. I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Anyway, another one in 1990, I got to mention Cult, Sonic Temple.
Yeah.
Biggest hit the Cult ever had, Fire Woman.
Yeah.
That had to be, and that's you working with Bob Rock.
Yeah. Me and Bob were a pretty good team for
I think so.
For a few records.
I think you got your reputation intact, Mike. Sonic Temple, Fire Woman, that's the one we hear on the radio all the time. That was like the first. I mean, Bob Rock was around with Motley Crue and stuff, and he was just starting to make a really, really big name with himself. Yeah. He did that one, and then he started going into. Then he did Metallica, of course.
Yeah.
Did you ever have in that one?
No, the first time I worked with Metallica was on the Binge and Purge live big package. I mixed all that.
Reload, and you worked in Reload, correct?
Yeah, and then on Reload, they were doing this record. It was going to be a double record. It just was taking forever. So they said, look, we're just going to finish off the first half of it, which was Load.
Right.
Can you come in and help? Because they wanted to mix one song a week. They wanted to take all this time, and that's for me. That's crazy. I mix a song a day, so one song a week. So they said, okay, if we do that with one guy, it's going to take forever. So let's get in Mike. So Randy was in a studio across the street from me, and we were like swapping, drum takes and all that stuff. So we mixed 2 songs a week. So
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you can't get better stories than this, because us as fans. We just plug in the CD. I mean, most of us do. Plug in the CD, listen to it. Oh, it's a great album, But the Bob Rocks, the Bruce Fairburns, the Mike Frasers, the Bob Clear Mountains. I had Bob Marlett on here as one. You familiar with Bob?
No, I haven't.
Bob Marlett, he was on here. He's done.
You know what? I did an Airborne record with Bob.
Right, he did Airborne.
Wow, yeah.
Right. He was on here.
I love Bob.
Yeah, he did. He's done a lot of work. So us as geeks love this. Love the little stories in between. But now,
hey, before we move on, I've got a great cult story.
Go ahead.
So we're doing Sonic Temple, right? Did the record, Great Edie and Fire Woman.
Edie Chow, baby!
All that stuff. So they did a song called The River. And it was, from my memory, it was, like a 7 or 8 minute song, this thing. And it was kind of sort of along the line, the Vietnam kind of thing, right? And it was one of Ian's songs. He was really into. So we went out and rented Apocalypse Now. And in the studio in Little Mountain at the time, we had kind of a sound stage where we did all the drum tracking and stuff. And they had a big giant wall screen that would come down for when they're scoring to the movies and stuff, right? So we projected Apocalypse Now out there. We had probably at least 250 candles out there. And these guys tracked this song called The River. And we did, I think, 2 or 3 live takes with this movie playing in the background, all the lights down, just candlelit. Dude, it was like a religious experience. Now, I've never heard the song since. I think it is out. You would probably know better than me. I think it's out on some
format,
B-side format, something like that. None of it was ever filmed, and there's probably no pictures, but check out The River, man, because it still gives me
goosebumps. Yeah. And you can tell Ian Astbury's one of those guys that is really into his craft. I mean, he goes all out. You can tell.
He is so awesome. Love that guy. Yeah.
Well, one of my most iconic albums in my life, one of my musical heroes, one of the greatest human beings ever lived, and one of the biggest rock stars I've ever met in my life is Ronnie James Dio.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I have him on my arm, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And you've done Angry Machines. Oh my God. Strange Highways with him. That was when you produced their album.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that? Because this is the part of the interview where I was really hoping to find out some stuff.
Well, that was the first time I met Vinny Appice.
He was on the show, friend of the show.
With his brother Carmine.
Both of them on the show.
Yeah. So I met Vinny, which was surprising. He was a lot like Carmine. So it's like, right in there with the New York accent and all that. Tracy G on guitars, who's a monster. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And Ronnie was an absolute sweetheart. Like him and I just bonded right away. So that record was a lot of fun. I remember it being a lot of work. Always trying to make it better than the back stuff, but some of the back stuff was just so awesome. And Ronnie had such a long career in different bands and such. So I remember that as a producer being always challenged and tough, and Ronnie'd always be pushing you a bit, and I'd push back, but it ended up being a really great, fun experience. And I love the record. I know it didn't do that great initially, and then there's some fans that that's one of his better records. So it's sort of aged well, but at the time it wasn't received with great honor.
As a fan, sonically, aside from Dehumanizer, which was a Black Sabbath album, which was produced by Mac.
Yeah.
That was the best sounding Dio album I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I can tell you. Musically, as far as the tracks, Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost. I mean, what a friggin' track. When I heard that and I heard Tracy G's guitar, I was like, what the fuck is this? I mean, you could tell where Ronnie was going. Don't forget, it was the grunge era. He had to he didn't want to put the past completely behind him, but he couldn't sing about Dungeons and Dragons anymore. He had to sing more about real life, because everybody had fucking Doc Martens and a plaid shirt around their waist and hated their lives, and he tried to make the best out of a no-win situation. And he went along with this, and he did Strange Highways and the song Firehead and Give Her the Gun. I mean, all those songs, they really hold up the test of time. And I remember a quote, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if you ever heard this, but I remember Ronnie saying he worked with producer Mike Fraser, and Mike Fraser was the best producer he's ever worked with.
Oh, wow.
And that, you could go back and check. I'm telling you, it came out of his mouth, and he said that. And you're talking about a guy who's worked with Martin Birch and Roger Glover and all these big names, and was in these big bands, and he said that about you.
Wow. Thanks, Ronnie.
Yes. Definitely said that. So I gotta say, your we got about 10 minutes left, Mike. Okay. Your long-standing situation, partnership with ACDC.
Yeah.
How did that come about? We got about 10 minutes left, and this is a big part of your career. So what do we got there? First of all, I got to say, fans, the song Thunderstruck that you hear in every friggin' stadium, on every TV, every 5 minutes on the radio, this man is the huge part of it. So here's what I want to start off by saying. Did Angus come in and go, hey, listen, Mike, I got this riff. It goes, what can we do with that, Mike? Can we do anything with that?
Well, kind of, you're kind of, because on that song, we had sort of finished the recording, and Bruce was saying, he says, we kind of need an intro. And Angus goes, yeah, well, he says, I got this part I want to put in there. He says, check it out. So he says, okay. He says, okay, roll tape, Mike. So Angus lights a cigarette, and he's sitting there on his little stool, and he goes, right. That's cool. So it's going along, and then the singing starts, and Angus is still going, and then it gets to the chorus, and Angus is still going. So Bruce looks at me and went, okay, and keep the tape rolling. So we did it one take all the way to the end. At that point, Angus's ass just like that long to fall off. He goes, "Oh, what do you think of that, Bruce?"
Yeah. And then you're trying to understand what Brian's saying. Brian's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to say my mom's wrong. I did, but we're lady, right?" I mean, right?
Oh,
how do you understand what he says?
Yeah, Ralph, it was one take all the way through.
Are you serious? One take?
One take all the way through. So it was only meant to be in the intro, but if you listen to the mix, we kept it into the whole song. All
right.
It just faded out at some spot, but it's still there, and faded it back at one take. We're done. It's like freaking awesome.
Was it your idea when he goes, you band? to keep that, to put that echo in there?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
All right. You bam. Thunderstruck. I mean,
that was funny. That record had started out, they had started recording it with their brother George in Ireland. And then there's a family illness or something happened. George couldn't finish it. So they started looking and said, oh, well, hey, let's check out this Bruce Fairbairn guy. So Mel and his manager came to Vancouver to meet up with Bruce, came in to meet with Bruce. Says, okay, so all we need to do is do some lead guitar stuff, the drums, everything done. We need lead guitars and lead vocal. Bruce says, okay, cool. So we started doing it. And one of the songs we're singing, Brian was having a trouble with it, was in the wrong key for him. So they had to change the key. So we had to re-record all the bass and the guitars. So re-record it. Mel looks at Angus and goes, that's fucking great. He says, so we ended up re-recording all the bass and guitars for all the songs. So most of the drums were done, but I re-recorded.
Chris Slade was on drums on that record. That wasn't
that's right. Yeah.
That wasn't Phil Rudd. Yeah. I got to say, Brian Johnson has to be one of the most difficult guys to understand. And they gave him an interview show. Did you see this on cable? Yeah. I'm watching. I'm there watching. I'm like, he's like, hey, we're going to go to the same. We're going over here. We're going to go down there. Hey. And the only people that understand him are the English people that he interviews. Like Robert Plant was there. Fucking head was like this big. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I need fucking closed captioning on my TV. What the hell is this guy saying? I don't understand what the hell he's saying.
Well, it's funny. See, I understand Brian better than I understand you sometimes.
Oh, shit. All right. There you go. Well, you understand the fucks and the shits in between. You can understand that. But what's? I know we can't get too personal to ACDC, and we're gonna be wrapping this up. Do you know of anything happening on the horizon? You did the last album, Power Up, and it hit right during COVID, which was fucked. Because I was really looking forward to an album and a tour with that, but we all got fucked. Excuse me, we all got screwed. Excuse me. Anything rumbling there? Did you hear anything?
Well, the thing with Power Up, which I thought was great. I mean, it was kind of got screwed up with the COVID, but when they released it, we're sort of still in the middle of COVID, so it kind of gave everybody a shot in the arm, give them a power up. Unfortunately, a tour didn't really transpire out of that. Fingers crossed that something's going to happen with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, as far as new music,
there's a lot of, nobody's getting any younger.
I know. And I don't know how Brian Johnson can hold up that voice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't ever hear anything from those guys unless, it's time to go back in the studio. So I don't know what any I haven't heard any rumblings myself. So.
Right. Okay. Well, Mike, listen, what's going on with you? Mike Fraser, 2023. What are we looking forward to? Well, are we doing local bands? Are we doing country music? Are we doing new established bands? What are we doing?
All of the above.
All right. So give me some names. Come on, Mike.
I got no names to give you yet, Ralph. I can't divulge what's going on until it's going on. You understand this business as well as I do.
Yes.
So, but I've got a couple irons in the fire for 2023. There's going to be some good rock coming out for sure.
All right.
And I've got my fingers crossed because I've heard that in 2022. They say, oh yeah, come on, we're going to do a record. And then it didn't happen, but I think it's going to happen this time for sure. I'm ready because I ain't getting any younger either. So
hey, you look great. You still got your hair. That's a big thing.
That's my makeup girl. And
hey, listen, if this producing thing doesn't work out, you could always get a seat on the, with Thomas Jefferson and George Washington somewhere,
I'll just come out and hang out with you. We'll do shows together.
Oh, forget it, Mike. We'd have a blast. I'd pick your brain and you'll be saying, how the fuck do you know that?
I'm already doing that.
Right, Mike? And I'm just some chubby fat kid from Queens, New York. And I get that all the time, But listen, this is my passion. I love it. I love speaking to people such as yourself. And I've got to speak to some of my heroes and played on some of the most iconic albums of all time. And I got to pinch myself sometimes.
Brother, that's been great. I was just thinking about it today, and I think, dude, it's got to be at least probably 10 years or more since I've been to New York. I used to go all the time, come out for mastering. Well, they've stopped, with the internet going, you don't go up for master, you just send your files, they send you a thing back. So I don't get my trips to New York.
You have an outstanding invitation to come to New York. You can stay at my house.
Dude,
I'll take it to the old neighborhood. I'll take it for the best slice of pizza you ever want in your life. Okay. I'll take it someplace where the guys be giving us the finger saying, fuck you, all that kind of stuff. I'll take it the whole way. But anyway, I want to thank Mr. Mike Fraser, producer, engineer, and mixer extraordinaire. Mike, you got to come back. We need more time.
Anytime,
and
man.
You had such an eclectic career. I just couldn't cover everything.
We got to keep going. There's so much more to talk about.
Yes. Well, we're definitely going to get it done. But I try to
get the page and all that kind of stuff.
Coverdale page. I know I didn't get to cover that one.
Jeff just dying, freaking.
I know Jeff Beck. Rest in peace.
I never worked with him, but what a guy.
Yes, but Mike, I'm definitely going to set up part 2. I'll check your schedule. I'm going to send you an email now. Okay. I want to tell you something, and I want to thank you so much, Mike. You made my 2023 so far. All right, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome speaking to you. Take care of yourself.
All right,
bye.
Buddy. See you later.
Okay, Mike, I'll email you.